get it.
SDP, the Steve Dangle Podcast, with your hosts, Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake.
We have shenaniganery to get to today on the podcast. Not that we don't always, but Leafs Twitter is just fluttering with rumors of a gargantuan move. Tyler Ennis potentially being claimed by the Leafs. Are they interested? No. Could they possibly get him? Probably not. Should we talk about it all day? Abso-fucking-lutely.
You know what, Adam? I don't know if I'm appreciating this Tyler Ennis slander. I don't know if I'm appreciating any of that.
Oh, I bet you're going to send me a video of how he scored a hat trick with the Leafs. Oh,
wow.
He did. Oh, wow. You know what, Jesse, you know what Steve does in the summer? He looks up all the Tyler Ennis goals that he scored with the Leafs and rewatches them just to go like, I love Tyler Ennis so much.
Takes him about 30 seconds to get through the whole highlight reel.
Hey,
him on
90.
waivers.
It takes 90. 10 seconds for each goal.
You know,
how dare
when
you?
the Leafs win the Cup this year, I'll always remember the time on January the 25th, 2021, that they claimed Tyler Ennis, and it made all the difference. Wow.
I'm just excited for everyone tuning in to hear our take on the Patrick Laine, Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, only to hear us talk about the Leafs at a waiver wire decision they haven't even made yet.
That. By the way, if Tyler Ennis is actually worth it, do you honestly think? Well, we'll get into it later. The Leafs.
Yeah, I was like, are we doing this?
No,
are we opening?
No. We're gonna go Patrick Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now we're gonna talk about this situation because there's a lot of angles with this. But then at 3:00, Aaron Portzline from The Athletic is going to come on. He is obviously the Columbus beat reporter, knows everything that there is to know about the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's going to give us his takes on some things. So we'll probably throw some stuff around that Aaron will, in about an hour, tell us is completely wrong, which is totally fine. That's why we're having him on. So starting with the actual move itself, Patrick Laine for Jack Roslovic and Pierre-Luc Dubois, and obviously a third rounder. So Laine and Roslovic to Columbus, Pierre-Luc Dubois and the third rounder to the Jets. The Jets also retained some salary, according to Frank Saravalli of TSN. Roughly, and Cap Friendly retweeted and said, retaining 26% would make Dubois for Laine a wash in terms of cap space. It also leaves Columbus with $1.72 million in cap space. The club could use that to create more space and sign Roslovic, who remains unsigned, and Laine is on the IR, so that opens up a roster spot for anybody paying attention to the taxi squads this year.
Yeah, actually, Adam, Roslovic, 1.838 for 2 years.
Oh.
So he did end up getting extended. So
there you go.
Blue Jackets obviously taking on more cap hit there, but they also get two players instead of one. So
also, should we let the giant animal that joins the show join the show before this?
Oh, I guess so, right?
Yeah,
we should. We should. Let's do it. Tony the Tiger. Okay. Now, Steve, we're gonna go off script a little bit here. I'm not going to ask you for the best Leafs goal recently. I'm going to ask you for the best Patrick Laine goal with the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah?
140 to choose from. What one was your favorite?
Well, he scored many and many recently. There was obviously the 5-goal game that he had in Finland. I believe that was against the Florida Panthers. But as a Leafs fan, I will say no non-playoff goal, because playoff goals hurt. Playoff losses hurt.
Physical.
Oh, physically for weeks and months and years, according to my therapist. But no regular season goal stung me in the heart the way that Patrick Laine, with his overtime hat trick goal against the Leafs in Matthew's first NHL game against Laine. Oh, nothing stung me more than that OT winner. Leafs were up 4-0 in that game. I believe in Winnipeg. Winnipeg comes back, Laine getting 2 of the 4 goals, and then it goes to overtime. Laine, OT winner. Oh, nothing stung more than that thing, man. I don't even remember how he scored it. I just remember being traumatized by it.
Well, there you go. In Patrick Laine era, 140 goals in 4 seasons. Not bad. Not bad.
Now that's a reason for a serial selly.
Unless you're a Jets fan. Now,
yes, well,
now we do need to talk because can I just come out and say it? Jarmo Kekalainen is a boss when it comes to trades. He might not be great at re-signing people. He might alienate people who he's trying to re-sign, but holy smokes, does the guy make some good trades. Now you're gonna be like, oh, let's see what he's talking about here. Steve's gonna cross his arms and he's gonna go, I don't know. The fact that Columbus made a run a couple seasons ago, the Matt Duchene trade being the chief among them, but I believe Ryan Dzingel came in a separate move as well to go along with Panarin and Bobrovsky, and we all knew they were sort of going to leave town. And the fact that this team has remained competitive without any draft picks last year, and then has come in this year and made a pretty solid move for the kind of goal scorer that you get maybe once or twice in a generation, I think. Pretty solid move by Jarmo Kekalainen, especially for a team that doesn't score goals. Now, everybody's saying, and I think rightfully so, John Tortorella and Patrick Laine. Guy doesn't play defense. I think John Tortorella knows how to coach a team with players with high firepower. LeCavalier, St. Louis, and Brad Richards come to mind. Just some people that he's coached before and coached with some wins. And I think if you're John Tortorella and you want to hang on to your job, Patrick Laine is going to be put in a position to score. Yes?
100%. And they've already sent him, supposedly while he's, waiting to do all the paperwork that he needs to do, they sent him footage of the Blue Jackets power play and basically their goals and what they want to be able to do with him. So Patrick Laine is going to Winnipeg for one reason and one reason only.
Columbus. He's going to Columbus.
What did I say? Winnipeg?
He's going to Winnipeg.
Oh, dear. I'm sorry. Well, he's going to Columbus. He's not going to Winnipeg anymore. He's going to Columbus to do one thing. I got to say, it's weird that he is not a Jet anymore. Super weird. Same with Dubois. That guy just got there. They both just got there. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right at all.
Was that your initial reaction when the trade was announced? Was it still like, even though we knew after that Pierre-Luc Dubois shift, the infamous shift at 3:55 of the first period, and then he's gone for the rest of the game, kind of knew that something was going to happen this weekend. We do know that I believe Vegas was somehow in on Patrick Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois, Anaheim, Montreal. Were you surprised by the move, or were you kind of like, hey, we got something right? Because we did kind of suggest that this made the most sense at the beginning of the season a couple weeks ago.
Well, so people obviously love Laine. For all his defensive warts, he's been getting better at that. He's become a far better playmaker than he was his first couple years in the league. He's not a one-dimensional player anymore. He's a dominant player. He's played one game this season, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. Come on now. He's real good. The initial reaction I saw was the Blue Jackets fleeced the Jets in this deal. And then I looked at the Jets up the middle, and Craig Button took some heat for this because he said it's the best center ice in Canada. I don't know if it's the best center ice in Canada.
It's not.
But I think he was half joking.
I don't know. It's hard with Twitter, right? But They now have Pierre-Luc Dubois, who, if he's not a number one center, he's going to be one. Mark Scheifele, who I think is in the category of, remember a few years ago, we looked at Ryan Johansson and we're like, he's a good player. Like, is that a number one though? You know what I mean? Like, I think he's a number one. I don't think he's a very good one.
Whoa.
As a number two or a number one with a guy like Dubois behind him, Scheifele's an assassin. We know what he can do. And I bet his goal production is going to go way up now that he's basically got sole possession of the Laine bomb spot, right? They got Stastny there, Lowry, their center ice. So it's funny. Did they win the trade? I don't know. I don't really think Winnipeg did, but I kind of look at them and I go, yeah, they're better though. They have the talent up the middle, and it's going to make their wings better, and their wings are already good. They got Kyle Connor, they got Nikolai Ehlers. Who knows who else is going to emerge out of this, and young guys they can add to the situation. I like what the Jets look like. And let's not forget a key thing here. So key is Patrick Laine needs a deal.
And I think that decides who wins the trade.
100% it does. And this was the second thing I thought of, Adam, and this is why I crossed my arms, because I was thinking about it. If Columbus cannot get Laine to stay. What do? What do you do as a franchise? Because that would mean Laine left, and Bobrovsky left, and Panarin left, and Duchesne left. And you got Jeff Carter to keep Rick Nash happy, and then Jeff Carter needed to leave. So he did, which meant then Rick Nash left. And when does it stop? How do you stop the bleeding? How do you possibly keep up with that? So I agree with you that they make good trades, and Kekalainen has done a good job. How do you handle the fact that no one wants to stay?
Well, and add this to the mix, okay? What was Columbus willing to pay Mitch Marner to pull him over as a restricted free agent?
Oh, wasn't it like 13 mil?
Yeah.
Like 12 and a half.
You're Patrick Laine. You're like, I'm at least that good. I can for sure
get a lot of. They're gonna have to pay him a lot of money.
They are, and they will. They will. Patrick Laine will get all the money that he wants, I think, in Columbus, because I think they've put themselves in a position where they kind of have to pay him, right? Sort of, what choice do you have? But from a pure talent perspective, I don't think you can argue that Columbus won this deal. Like, implications aside, let's just have a look here. Just humor me for a second. And it was interesting because Pierre LeBrun put an article into The Athletic today. He always does the canvassing the GMs and how do you think this deal went off? And I always find those interesting because it's interesting to hear what people in the game have to say about it. And most of the comments from the, quoted but not sourced GMs, or sorry, not direct quoted, I guess they're anonymous quotes. Most of the quotes said pretty even deal for both sides, works for both sides, which I think is fair. But at the end, Pierre goes in to say that he thinks that the tie goes to Winnipeg on this one, and he gives a bunch of reasons for that. Now, I want to
win them.
Well, that's what he says. Pierre-Luc Dubois has played 239 NHL games. He has 66 goals, 93 assists, 159 points. Pretty good. Already. Patrick Laine has played 306 games, has 140 goals, 110 assists, 250 points. Now, if you're keeping track, I did a little math. That's 91 more points with 67 more games. Pierre-Luc Dubois is not going to be able to make that up. 140 goals to 66 goals. So let's be honest. In hockey, I think we put a little too much of the importance thing on the assist. Because it's like, well, he gave the puck up. He's a good person. We use it as a value judgment on wow, Gretzky had the most goals, but did you know his assists is what's really important? Well, no, actually, the goals are more important. The goals are always more important. The assists don't exist without the goals. You have a guy who's scoring almost 3 times as much as the other guy who is the same age, who's played 60 more games.
How about this? Laine's worst goal-scoring season was last year, and it certainly would not have been his worst goal-scoring season. It's only because of the pandemic. He had 30 once, and I think that was that weird season where he was either dominant or a bum. So last year in 68 games, he has 28 goals and 35 assists. So he's scoring at I think that's just off the top of my head, roughly a 35 goal pace. Pierre-Luc Dubois' top goal scoring was 27.
Yeah.
They're not, Laine's a different beast offensively. Now, Dubois is a feisty jerk. We saw that in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Walks that line. He's a two-way player, and he's a center. All those things work in favor of him and against Laine. But it's like I said before the season even began. I'm not sure how you win a Patrick Laine trade, guys. All right. I think the Jets did as good as they possibly could, but I don't know how you
Adam,
win a Patrick Laine trade.
I had the same initial reaction as you to this trade, because whenever I look at a blockbuster trade, I say, okay, which team got the better player? Because that team usually won the deal. And in this case, it looks like Patrick Laine has the higher ceiling. He's already the better goal scorer. So Columbus should be happy that they've walked away with the better player in the deal. And initially, if you're getting the better guy, you win the trade, because your team is going to be improved exponentially because you're taking away a weaker player and you're adding the better skilled player.
It is. And the thing is, Roslovic maybe he's a third line center, but so is Paul Stastny, right? The thing is, what I look at with Roslovic is if he turns into a good third line player, even that is more valuable, probably more likely than a third round pick. And I think in this particular case, we talked about it with Tim and Sid. We talked about it, at other points as well. The reality is the Columbus Blue Jackets in a vacuum win this trade. They'll get Patrik Laine signed. They'll get him signed because, as Steve pointed out, kind of the franchise is kind of at stake here a little bit. Yeah, right? What's his number?
You have to have permission from ownership to break the bank on this one. You just have to. You're having such a hard time getting guys to stay. It's like the Buffalo Sabres years and years ago. Remember, they lost Danny Briere. Then they lose Chris Drury. The Oilers try to offer sheet Thomas Vanek. And the Buffalo Sabres made the choice, we're going to give Thomas Vanek far too much money.
Yep.
Because
I remember we had just recorded a podcast.
There you go.
And when he got when he got traded, that's right. After that, because that contract became so big, they had to trade him. That kicked off the record a podcast. Big news breaks afterwards. It was Thomas Vanek.
That's right. I remember a teddy bear being involved somehow.
That's right.
Well.
Yeah.
You got to have permission. Now, I was looking and going, why didn't the Jets, why a third? Like, surely they should be getting more futures out of this. And I think this might be COVID having an impact here because Dubois, in the first year of his deal, a deal that he signed post-COVID, he gets $3.35 million this year in actual cash, dollars. Laine's making 7.5. So he's making more than double. And then you add Roslovic to that. You're adding close to 3 times the salary there. So I wonder if it's, we're not going to give you more because,
you mean
money?
Laine? You mean,
yeah. Or wait, am I getting this confused?
I think so, because I don't think that the owners for Winnipeg care. Like, I don't think there are internal budget issues there.
Yeah, and Columbus is the one taking on money. I'm not gonna lie. No, I like the way Winnipeg looks after this deal.
Mm-hmm.
They might even be a better team, but from a value standpoint, I don't like it. I think it's for them. I
probably
think really well
done, and it's good that they got a center. Good that they got a center because you need 1 and 2. You need your Draisaitl, McDavid, Tavares, Matthews. You're going to need that in especially if the Canadian division continues beyond this year. But even this year, you're going to need it. Give Stastny a chance to go down to the third line, do something else there. But the reality is, Columbus wins the trade on talent, and that's really what you want to come away with. And one other thing I'd like to give Jarmo Kekalainen credit for. What is there, 45 games left?
Most teams have played 7.
Okay, so
unless you're
like
Dallas
48, 49 games left, something like that. Patrik Laine better have a blistering last 50 games here. Because if he wants to make the money he wants to make, remember, Jarmo Kekalainen is no joke when it comes to dealing with restricted free agents. This guy has been hardcore in the past. He'll be hardcore again. Now, we said earlier, not 5 minutes ago, pay him what you need to pay him. Yes, what you need to pay him, not necessarily what he wants to be paid. And Jarmo Kekalainen is going to, for Patrik Laine to make the crazy money that Patrik Laine wants to make, Patrik Laine is going to have to put up huge numbers for Columbus, which is a team that has struggled to score goals. This is a great move in the interim for Columbus for that reason. And I want there to be more of a shift to focus on how important goal scoring is in the NHL. We focus way too much on assists. And again, like I said, it's like a value judgment of character. It's like, this person's a good man because he assists on some things. Well, there's a lot of ghost assists. There's a lot of, it's the goals that really should count. In every other sport, goals count.
Assists
home runs, goals, baskets. No one's worried about assists anywhere else.
Assists are an eye thing to me.
They are. Yeah. So let me ask you this. And it's been floated a few times, and I want to get your guys' take on this. So the disinterested shift from Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Adam Herman, I think, put this out and suggested this. Is that the only negotiation tactic that a player has once you get to the point where you've signed your contract, you've asked for a trade, and you're still not getting what you want?
He could sit out. He had every opportunity to sit out. And if he was going to go on the ice and not try, he should just just not put on his equipment.
And this is the difficult thing because I went hard at Torts, and then a lot of Blue Jackets fans were like, whoa, no. And then it was hard at Dubois. And now stuff is coming out today. Well, it was probably Torts again. So we're going to have to get Aaron Portzline on here. So I so people know who is to blame here.
Okay, but what
The
is your
answer's
initial
probably
thought?
in the middle.
Okay, but what is
The
your
answer's
initial
probably
thought?
in the middle.
Okay, what's your initial thought?
My initial thought is you have two guys here, well, and Roslovic, but you have two guys here in Laine and Dubois who asked for trades. Publicly, wasn't a secret from either of them. And one guy was an assassin the whole time. He was a star the whole time. And the other guy pouted about it. And I'm sorry, that's what he did. That's 100% what Dubois did. Now, did the Blue Jackets or Tortorella or however you want to put it, did they rub his nose in it? Yeah, sure looked like it, but it doesn't look like he did anything. It wasn't risking, he wasn't even getting into a puck battle. And I guess he figured, I'm out of town anyway, so why am I gonna risk this? But like and I like Adam. This isn't an attack on Adam Herman. I actually mentioned him in my book. But the idea that the only way to get what you want is to be a brat, like I don't understand that.
And he was saying it's a CBA issue, right? That you put young players into a box. Like, what are they supposed to do?
He's right that young players and RFAs get the short end of the stick, but we've seen so many other players deal with it so differently.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
mean,
that's just a problem across pro sports. Like, you have young players who kind of, their idea is to think outside the box, and they're like, okay, I come into this league and I get drafted by a team that I don't get to pick, and then I'm locked into this team for X amount of years, and then I don't get movement. And the complaint is about that system. Well, the system is the way it is, and like, you should definitely try and change it if you want, and there are ways to get around it. If you want to sit out if you're the number one overall pick, like Lindros did, and not go to your team.
Yep.
But also, if you're going to go out on the ice, like, make the decision beforehand to just not get out there if you're not going to play. Like, I feel like it's more dangerous for your teammates and for you to go out there and then not chase after the puck in a corner.
Lindros didn't get picked by Quebec and then not try.
Right. He just didn't go.
Yeah.
You know,
and people get mad at Lindros about that. But if you know anything about the Nordiques owner at that time, you wouldn't want to play for him either.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was not great. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And people have made veiled mentions about that. So,
and we see guys in leagues like across pro sports request trades, and eventually they get traded. Like, it happened.
Right.
No, guys usually don't just sit around and not get traded. Either they are traded or they work it out. There's always a resolution to these problems.
And I also, the interesting thing about Lindros and some other guys like him is back in the day, those guys would sign massive money contracts. Like, I think, what did Alexander Daigle get? I think he got a 5-year deal right out of the gate at like $1 million plus per year. He hadn't played a game, and it was Ottawa, like a team that's always struggled financially, even before Eugene Melnyk. That was, that's the thing, is Lindros was saying no to millions of dollars in 1990. Or 91, whenever he was drafted first overall. So, yeah, absolutely. I think, the best way probably is to sit out. I did find it interesting that Pierre-Luc Dubois signed that contract extension. And I wonder if Jarmo Kekalainen said to him, listen, you sign a good deal here. It'll make it a lot easier for us to trade you. If you sit out, then we won't trade you the entire year. You'll lose the entire year. And if I was Jarmo Kekalainen, I mean, that's the kind of hardball you have to play, right? We're not going to trade you. Almost like what the Oilers did with Puljujarvi, who, by the way, we'll get to a little bit later. He's having a good season. If you're Jarmo Kekalainen, what choice do you have? You got to send a message, right? We're not messing around here. And he seems like he's always seemed kind of like a Law and Order kind of guy, bit hardcore. And I feel like that's probably what he said. Listen, Pierre-Luc, we will not trade you if you don't sign. So you'll lose the season. Just bet on that. And so Pierre-Luc Dubois signs, plays, and then has a couple of shitty games and a bad shift, and it becomes, national hockey news, like around the hockey Twitterverse, and manages to leverage his way out. Is it the best? No, but what choice does he have?
This is the thing, right? He got what he wanted.
He did. He did.
He got what he, but didn't Laine as well? Well,
and let's talk about this. Let's talk about Laine. Because I think what's interesting in both cases is we don't know why. We don't really know.
Yeah.
Like, we know We know ish. We know a little.
We can guess.
Probably would be pretty close.
Yeah.
But we don't know why. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, obviously, it could have been torts. It could have been some other things. I've got a couple questions. There's also some weird rumors going around on Reddit about it, but we'll ask Aaron that. One thing we can verify is the Winnipeg dressing room has been split for several years. We know that. Ever since that cup run, and even before, there have been stories floating around, but not widely reported and not widely enough circulated about the way leadership works in Winnipeg. So we're going to start with some of the stuff that's actually verifiable, and then we'll get into the Finnish publications because the Europeans always have better quotes than we do. But it started off with a tweet by Bruce Garrick. And Bruce Garrick, obviously, or Garrick, has been, a huge reporter in Ottawa for a long, long time.
Oh, Garriock,
sorry.
Sorry. I was like, Who the hell?
Yeah.
Sorry.
My bad. Again, one of those guys you've never heard their name spoken out loud, but you've known them forever.
Dude, I think I might be wrong. I don't know.
So anyway, Bruce tweeted this. He said that Blake Wheeler had regrets about how he could have handled Patrick Laine. Now, the full quote is, maybe if I had communicated better, maybe it would have made things better, but ultimately, I don't think that would have happened. Now, here's what Wheeler had to say after the Jets' 17-18 Cup run in an interview with Sarah Orlesky of TSN. Quote, I was disappointed for the first time in myself last year, not because we didn't win the Cup. I lost touch with myself as a dad, as a husband, first and foremost, because I was invested too much in trying to win. Everybody was talking about this is our year to win, and it really turned out to be. And we had a real opportunity to win, and when I was home, that's where I was. I was trying to win the Stanley Cup. And then he said, and when I was in the building, sometimes I was spitting nails just because I wanted to win the Cup. I was so focused on that. When it was all done and I got home, it's like, man, this is almost too, my daughter's growing up. My sons are in kindergarten. None of that is important. Am I hard on people compared to how I was treated as a rookie? This is important. Absolutely not. That's changed a lot. There's a lot more hand-holding, and I have to put myself in people's shoes a lot more than the leaders or the older guys did for me when I was a young player. I think there's a recognition that the players are coming into this league now are starting to filter into the locker rooms. It's different. You have to approach them differently. You have to sort of coddle them a little bit. And if you don't, then you've been too hard on them. Now,
interesting.
I'm going to read this last quote because he mentions this a few times. Okay. This line keeps coming up in all the stories I keep hearing. I've been wondering about this since this interview first took place. He said, it has to do with a certain way in my career to get where I'm at. Sorry, I had to do it a certain way in my career to get where I'm at. That's not necessarily the same for somebody else, but there's a pretty common theme in this league that you've got to do a certain thing. You have to prepare a certain way if you want to be successful. So I try to show the guys what that looks like. And from there, you're not holding people's hands. This is the big leagues. Now, I hear a guy who wants to win. Do you guys not hear that?
Of course. Maniacally.
Right. Now, remember that next year after the Stanley Cup, the Jets room was completely split and they kind of fell to pieces. And then you've got, Byfuglien not wanting to come back. And Ehlers talking about, recently hating that his best friend Laine is traded. And then before all that, we had the tracksuit incident, as you guys remember, with 23-year-old Evander Kane. And Byfuglien and Wheeler had comments, and this is an article from CJ back in 2015. Byfuglien spoke with reporters on Thursday before Sportsnet's report surfaced and was asked how Kane's absence from the game would affect his status in the dressing room. Now, Steve, can you remind us what happened with the tracksuit incident? What was the tracksuit incident with Winnipeg?
I believe it was Kane showed up late to, I want to say, a video session. And so Dustin Byfuglien was just like, screw this guy. And he took his tracksuit and threw it in the shower. Now,
the rumor was, too, that if you show up to a video session, you show up in a suit and tie, you don't show up in a tracksuit too.
Right.
So that was also part of it, right? Is that there's a dress code. There's a way we do things. We do things. Right?
Got it. Which, okay, if you have a way of doing things, fine. I'm not sure that's how you handle it, but
here's what Buff said. We're just a tight group. It is what it is. That's just among us. things we've just got to handle ourselves. There's a standard that everyone needs to live up to, added teammate Blake Wheeler. This is before he was captain. Andrew Ladd was still captain at this point. We're professionals. We make a lot of money, and we're expected to uphold a certain standard. That's the code we live by. That's just the way it is. If you don't like it, there's other places to go. This is the way we do things. God. And then we have this, if I might. This is an article from Mike McIntyre from Winnipeg, and this has to do with the Jets, okay? And I'm just building a case here, so go with me on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Lawyer Adam
actually sent this to me. Source A made it clear to me the problem was entirely on Winnipeg's power brokers, from ownership to general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff to coach Paul Maurice to Wheeler, who runs the dressing room along with alternate captain Mark Scheifele and have repeatedly butted heads with the more laid-back Laine. In his mind, they've cultivated a toxic environment that had Laine looking for the quickest exit. The issues in Winnipeg right now, and this is a quote, the issues in Winnipeg right now have to deal more with issues in the dressing room between competing personalities. And when there is a divided room, that gets around the league. And players generally, if they have other options, are going to exercise them until that whole situation gets cleaned up. I'm surprised it's been allowed to go on this long without people in charge getting in there and cleaning it up. It's going to have a great impact around the league with people choosing to play in Winnipeg or not, which is important for a small market franchise. Now, same writer, source B, different opinion, suggested in no uncertain terms that Laine and Laine only was the problem, that a perceived lackadaisical approach towards his career quickly wore thin. All of the issues in the room could be solved by trading one guy, Patrick Laine, said the source. I suspect, like so much in life, the truth is somewhere between source A and source B. None of the key parties, the ones who really know what went down, is willing to share it publicly.
Right.
And Laine spoke Saturday and refused to point fingers on the way out the door. I still think, based on all of this, and then a Finnish publication posting this.
Well, this one's...
Are you ready? This is Aliati.
This is fun.
Atiali? I don't even know how to say it.
I'm not sure, man.
Yeah, it's Finnish, man. Like, if you're Finnish, correct me, but like, I'm not even going to try. The Finnish publication cited, quote, inside sources, gee, I wonder who, claimed that Patrick Laine was mistreated by forwards Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, and that Paul Maurice was too weak to defy them. Quote, Wheeler felt his position on the right side of the number one chain was threatened because Laine was originally a right winger. Wheeler was also not enthusiastic that a young man from Finland would become almost as popular in Winnipeg as Teemu Selanne. Outside the rink, Wheeler and Scheifele threw sand at Laine's skates in every possible way. Wheeler in particular was a master at speaking behind the backs of a Finnish young man for things he certainly did not want in public, meaning basically, and the English translation's a little rough, but basically that Scheifele and Wheeler worked to undermine Patrick Laine.
So I was talking to some people about this today, and I was like, they threw sand at his skates, and then we were like, what might be getting lost in translation here? Oh, was he sandbagged? Is that what they're trying to say? So we were figuring it out and trying to put it together. I'm not calling anyone here a liar. I don't know who any of these people are, but there is a quote in there that I cannot believe. Like Mark Scheifele's like, I'm really talented and everything, and I do a really good job. But I'm just worried that they're going to like the other guy more because he's Finnish.
Well, I think it's Blake Wheeler that was supposed to be the guy that has the problem.
Same thing. What? Yeah. Blake Wheeler should be threatened by Patrick Laine for so many more reasons.
Then he's Finnish.
He's Finnish?
And might be popular. Like, yeah. Well, I think that might have to do with
Austin Matthews joins the Jets and he's like,
at least it's an American.
Right. We got rid of the Finnish guy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like, no, I don't know. That sounds ridiculous. I don't dispute that it was said, but I don't know. That's very bizarre to me. I don't know.
And maybe a little bit lost in translation as well. Maybe it wasn't well translated. We can bet probably that it had less to do with the nationality and more to do with the attitude. Now, you can Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele are like diehard Winnipeg Jets. These guys are going down as two of the greatest Jets of all time. No question, right? Yeah. But the thing is, at a certain point, if you have a system and you've got 22 other people, or as many as 26 in the taxi squad situation, you can't expect that 26 different individuals are going to conform exactly to the way you conform, or what makes you perform well. And let's be honest here. Blake Wheeler mentioned that, he maybe could have, done things a little bit differently with Patrick Laine or whatever, or, with Evander Kane, this is the way we do things. Well, maybe the way you do things works for you. But Blake Wheeler, exactly. Blake Wheeler doesn't have the talent that Patrick Laine has.
And he's really
Therefore,
good.
100%. But I'm just going to throw it out there. Let's say Patrick Laine is more gifted. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that.
Oh, he's more.
I think Blake Wheeler worked harder for what he has than probably Patrick Laine did for him, for himself. I think Patrick Laine's got a gift.
Yeah.
And it bothers people that have to work extremely hard when people who come in and are extremely gifted and don't on the surface have to work as hard. And I'm not saying Patrick Laine didn't. It bothers them. And you
shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
God.
You cannot build a team on the same guy 26 different times. There are going to be guys that you don't like.
Imagine if I was jealous of how Adam, I was jealous of Adam's ability to steer the bus, drive a show,
or I was jealous of your sense of humor. Well, if I was jealous of Steve's sense of humor, I tried to be funny like Steve. I'm not going to fucking do it. I'm not that guy.
Yeah, you're right. I'm hilarious.
If the expectation of Wheeler or Scheifele or any guys on a hockey team is that they're going to get along with the other members of the hockey team, I think that's a ridiculous expectation. It's everybody's had a job. Everybody's been in a workplace. You're not going to get along with every single person you work with, or they're not always going to work as hard as you. And if just because somebody doesn't mesh with the way you do things, you want to get rid of them, I think that's ridiculous. You're going into wherever you work, it should just be okay, maybe 3 people here I'm not just going to be friends with, but we can still coexist and
work together.
And still, he can still pass me the puck and score. He has a great shot. Who cares what he does off the ice?
Here's the tiebreaker to me, right? So it was very interesting that you had that one story that was source A blames one side, source B blames the other. The tiebreaker is because there are, there's a source that feels one way and a source that feels the other. To me, that is a clear indicator that the room is split. Mm-hmm. And if the room is split, to me, that's on leadership.
Agreed.
And leadership's not Laine. Laine is the other, or it's the other guys. Leadership's the other.
Well, and you want to wear a captain, or you want to wear an A or a C. You got to be the one that brings those people in and motivates those people and reaches out to those people. It doesn't sound like, from the quotes that I've read, that there's a lot of that going on. And we could talk about how great they could be, great human beings. That doesn't mean they're great leaders. And Blake Wheeler's leadership specifically has been questioned before. He's talked about openly how he needs to back it off a little bit, that he's a little too harsh. And at a certain point for a small market team like Winnipeg, and I know that their ownership has a ton of money, but they are a small market team and it's harder to sign free agents there. It is, especially when a room's fractured. He even said that in the article. It's something where if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I'm happy with the team as it stands. That's great. But I need to sort this problem out soon, because you cannot have a leadership group that alienates young players. Pierre-Luc Dubois, after what he did in Columbus, is going to come into this with this military drill unit style thing. You guys are worried about Patrick Laine with John Tortorella. I'm worried about Pierre-Luc Dubois with Scheifele and Wheeler.
It's also different if they had a history of winning. If these rumors came out about Sidney Crosby, it's okay, because Sidney Crosby's got 3 Stanley Cups. You put up with whatever he wants, because that's the way he's proven is going to be successful, because he's going to lead that way. And Winnipeg just doesn't have that track record where it's hey, this type of leadership is going to work. So if they could win, then who cares however Blake Wheeler's treating that locker room. But
you made it to the conference finals one time.
Let me translate what Jesse just said. Who the hell are you?
Yeah. Question.
I agree. He's right.
Did Blake Wheeler win the cup with Boston in 2011?
No, he was dealt. He was dealt at the trade deadline before they won the cup.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Let me go look at
Atlanta, right?
He was dealt to Hot Atlanta. Oof. Yeah, NHL trade tracker.
Woof.
He was drafted 5th overall by the Coyotes. Didn't go. I don't remember how the Bruins got him. I can't remember if they just signed him.
He didn't go to Arizona.
He didn't go. He was drafted 5th overall in 2005.
Okay, so he knows something about not wanting to be with a team.
Or 2004. Like, this is... God, like, what a fleecing. Like, this is... The Bruins made this trade and then won a cup. Like, they made 2 relatively bad trades the year that they won a cup, but they won a cup. The Bruins got Rich Peverly and Boris Valabic. Do you remember Boris Valabic? He was 6'7", 231 pounds. Supposed to be the next Zdeno Chara. Was not. Then the Atlanta Thrashers get defenseman Mark Stewart and Blake friggin' Wheeler, who had back-to-back 91-point seasons before COVID. Wow. God, that is something else. But did not get a cup.
So Jesse, I think, makes the best point of all. What has this leadership group accomplished? I mean, really. And I'm a fan of the Jets. I think they're going to make the playoffs on the back of Connor Hellebuck. Vezina goalie should have been a Hart candidate last year. You watch, he might be this year. This is something that Winnipeg needs to deal with now. We're worried about, Patrick Laine re-signing in Columbus. What's going to happen to the franchise? What if, Blake Wheeler's old, man? He was drafted in 2004. What happens when Blake Wheeler moves on and all the young players are like, I don't want to be here anymore? And how is Pierre-Luc Dubois going to perform under this? He's played 9 games. He scored a goal and has the weakest shift in the NHL this year. Mm-hmm. What's he going to do? And if you don't fit us, get out of town. Evander Kane, Patrick Laine, Jack Roslovic. Who else? Who else is on the list? Bufflin won't come back. Myers won't resign. Trouba wants out.
The Bufflin situation. People just kind of forgot about that. But he didn't want to come back and play for the team.
Now, he might have been.
I thought was
trainers, I think.
Yeah, more medical. But Trouba is definitely worth. Trouba. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And we're talking about teams that can't hold on to players for very different reasons. By the sounds of it, we were always like, "Oh, Winnipeg, it's cold. People don't want." No, it sounds like the coldest place there is the locker room. Whereas Columbus, I don't know, maybe they just don't like Ohio. I don't know, but it's
and obviously the Jets fans. I mean, are they top 3 in the league?
They're awesome.
They're incredible. Like, who wouldn't want to play in that building? Yeah. You're a rock star.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I feel bad for the fans of both teams.
Yeah.
Especially I
don't feel bad for Columbus fans. I think they're going to be ripping it. Like, they're going to buy PLD. Patrick Laine, thank you. I'll never think about Pierre-Luc Dubois again.
Right, but there is the you got to remember, fans aren't always about the in and the out and the is my team better and everything. Like, there are a lot of Jets fans who thought that they did pretty well in this deal, but they're like, shit, Patrick Laine is not a Jet anymore.
Easily the most popular Jet.
Yeah, and they got really invested in his success. And with the Blue Jackets, it's a lot of Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's a lot of the same because, that pick in 2016, I want to say 3rd overall, instead of Jesse Puljujarvi. It was a controversial pick at the time. It was criticized. He had half a season at full-time playing center in the QMJHL when he was selected that high. And people criticized the pick. So it's sort of a, we'll show you, hey, everyone told us not to get this guy and we should have got Matthew Tkachuk and we should have got Puljujarvi. Look at this guy. He's an assassin. So it's, again, that little team that could. And here we are again, my brilliant team with its brilliant players. And now neither fan base has those guys who they got attached to for years.
But one of those guys quit on their franchise. The other guy didn't.
And that's the difference. And, we can talk about the reasons. So Laine had his reasons. Dubois had his, which I guess we'll get into more once Portsy joins us in a few minutes. But Laine gave an honest effort the entire time. Pierre-Luc Dubois just didn't. He just didn't. Different situations, obviously, but he just didn't. He quit.
I'm curious. It's funny that we still don't know how long Pierre-Luc Dubois is actually going to have to stay at the border as well. The Canadian government is actually the one who gets to decide this. So they don't have. I guess the deal with the NHL was they were going to decide based on each situation.
Yeah, it's local rules. It's not even like an overarching NHL rules. It's just, hey, whatever the government wants.
So,
but it's also they're trying to invoke a come on clause where it's 14 days for everyone else, but you get to go to the Manitoba government and be like, and they go, go Jets. And hockey, yeah, go Jets. You're right.
Yeah, let him go play.
You better not cough as soon as I sign these papers. Just go score a goal. Eat pancake, score a goal.
By the way, I don't think if I was a betting man, I don't think Manitoba's going to let up. Their premier a couple months ago put out a speech that went viral around Canada about COVID, and it was tears and family members affected. It was very moving. I don't think for a second I would be shocked if the Manitoba government moves on the 14-day quarantine or even a 10-day quarantine. I'd be shocked, but we'll see.
I get it. I'm the man who stole a week of Pierre-Luc Dubois from you.
That's what he said. Yeah. I'm stealing Christmas from between you and your family. That's what he said, right?
Yeah, that was like that. I was watching I don't know anything else about him, but I kind of feel bad. Canada's having a time.
Oh, yeah.
It is. It sure is. And you know what's going to be interesting is come trade deadline in a couple of months here. By the way, April is 2 months away at the end of this week. Just throw that at you.
I believe you, I guess.
We April 12th is trade deadline day, right before my birthday, right after Jesse's. That is going to be very interesting because, okay, you're a Canadian team. You want to add. You're one of the top 4 teams in your division, which, by the way, a reminder, the top 4 Canadian teams will be Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary, and no one else. Just throwing that out there. If you're one of those teams and you're looking to add, or you're Edmonton and you're desperate and you want to throw 2 second-round picks at Detroit for a player you can't re-sign, you will have to wait probably the 2 weeks for them to come north. So how does that affect trade value? Because you got to think that's got to be a part of it. How much, if we're just on the outside, how much of a chance do we really think that we have, even if we do get into the playoffs this year? Is it worth it for a guy that's not going to be here for a couple of weeks? Do we make the deal 2 weeks in advance of the trade deadline and pay more at that time? Like, that will be very interesting as well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of seller teams who are like, oh, you want to make a deal early so you can do the quarantine thing? Yeah, that's going to cost you. Because I would.
Canadians are going to have to overpay. Yeah, Canadian 100%. Teams are definitely going to have to overpay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's why you're going to start to see if there are moves to be made. I don't know, claiming Tyler Ennis, which is huge, if true. That would be something you want to get done earlier.
Are we bringing on Portzline or are we doing Ennis right now?
Well, Portsy's coming on. We're just waiting for him to be in the waiting room. So we're kind of hanging until. Do you want to talk Tyler Ennis?
Yeah.
We got to talk about
look at that. Speak of the devil.
There he is.
There he is.
Bring him in.
Joining right now.
So joining us, Aaron Portzline from The Athletic. Aaron, we're going to jump right in here with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Big move this weekend, obviously. Yeah. That's sort of understating it. This is probably one of the biggest trades in Blue Jackets history. Yep. I want to start with what's coming in. So Patrick Laine, Jack Roslovic, who was actually extended today. What are your thoughts on the return for Pierre-Luc Dubois? And then we'll get into the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation.
Yeah. Well, I think first off, it's an impressive trade by Jarmo Kekalainen. It's an impressive trade really by any GM who has to make a trade, if you know what I mean. He was in a really unenviable position. I mean, that's when vultures start to circle, when you've got a guy that wants out of town, and not only wants out of town, but it's pretty clear that this can't continue, that the situation just cannot be rectified. It has to be dealt with. So the fact that he was able to bring back Laine Roslovic, I think just in that respect today is a heck of a return. I think the trade works for Columbus, 2 ifs. Obviously, Laine signs long-term. That's a huge boost to the Blue Jackets. And I find it impossible, really, that Jarmo Kekalainen pulls this trade off without some indication from Laine of what he's looking at, what it would take if he would even consider Columbus before he makes this trade. In fact, he may have been granted permission to speak with Laine before the trade. They had 2 or 3 teams still in the works Friday night before they actually settled on this one. The second part that I think holds promise in this trade for the Blue Jackets is Roslovic. He's a Columbus kid, so that's great. That's a really good story today. But he pushed the emotional part off to the side. If he's able to be a middle six forward, which I think he can, if he's able to be a top six forward, which the jury's still out on that, if either of those come true, that this is a really good trade for Columbus. Those are two ifs. The first one's not a small if, but I think considering the circumstances, it's an incredible return for Jarmo Kekalainen and the Blue Jackets.
Aaron, do you get a sense of who else was in on this? We heard Montreal because of the Quebec connection, and they're going to be in on. There's always going to be rumors about when a Quebec player goes up. Who else was in, and what else was on the table? What was Montreal offering? I had heard maybe Vegas. What did you hear?
Well, the two teams that I heard last in the running along with Winnipeg were Anaheim and Montreal, and neither one of them have a Laine for sale. And I think what pushed it over the line would have been the conversations they had with Laine, the willingness to perhaps sign. Yeah, the combination from Anaheim and Montreal probably would have had a larger futures component in it and less of a today component to this trade. I know Jarmo Kekalainen, he likes the makeup of this team and thinks this group of leaders has a run in them. He thinks that they've got a run in them. They haven't done it yet. The last thing he wants to do is take away anything from this year's team for future promise, because this team needs everything it can get right now.
So one of the things I saw, or at least coming out of Winnipeg, Laine wants to play with this center or that center, and then it gets traded to the Blue Jackets, who are now trading probably their best center.
That's right.
Who would you expect Patrik Laine to play with once he starts actually playing?
Well, I think the clear choice, I don't think it's a perfect fit. I mean, we'll see. I think Max Domi's the clear choice. I mean, I don't think anyone believes Roslovic's ready for that, to roll with Laine, or that probably would have happened in Winnipeg. Texier is a young player that they're very high on. He's a playmaker, and they moved him to the middle. They took a look at him the first couple weeks of this season. I'm convinced it was to prepare themselves for the departure of Dubois. So I think he still stays there. But I think it's Domi to start. I think Texier and Roslovic are going to get a chance to both play and maybe fight for ice time in the number 2 spot. But for now, I think the clear choice is Domi, who was pretty fired up today after practice, I have to tell you.
I can imagine. He's an excitable guy.
Yes.
So Aaron, I mean, the one thing that we can't seem to figure out, and we just discussed it before you joined us, about half an hour on the leadership situation in Winnipeg and the fractured room that they've had for years now. It's been rumored for 2-3 years. What about Pierre-Luc Dubois? This seems to be the biggest question mark. Why all of a sudden, what happened between October and now? Was it something that happened in the bubble? Do you get a sense of exactly why he wanted out of town? Because it did seem to come out of nowhere.
Yeah. Of course, the easy fallback is Torts. Always, right? Mm-hmm. And we have visible proof, we've all seen it, of the two of them not exactly jiving. I've been told, and we've said from the minute this started to fall apart, or at least become public, that he wanted out, that both the player and people close to the player have insisted that this is not a Tortorella issue. Sure, there are times where the kid would like to be away from him, but this is not a situation where the player said, I can't play for that coach anymore, get me out of here. That is not what happened here. Jarmo Kekalainen, the GM, who's had some interesting go-rounds with contracts and kids, especially guys coming out of their entry-level deal, he insists that this was not a situation where the player became so frustrated with the negotiation process that he asked out. They had a long-term deal, 8 years on the table. I'm told $64 million over 8 years. I don't know how you say no to that.
Oh, wow.
Right.
What? Especially for a guy with 159 career points. Like, right. Wow.
Right. And at some point, all I get from the Dubois camp is that at some point during the prolonged negotiation, the player had time a different perspective to look at things, and determined that he didn't want to be in Columbus or he didn't want to be a Blue Jacket long term. Now, I think in one sense it's easier to say you want out of a city than it is to put a name on who you don't want to be around anymore or who you're mad at, right? Because that person has a say in it too. Pierre-Luc Dubois has said that he's never going to explain. That's a private conversation that will always remain private. So we may never know why he wanted to leave Columbus. But the assumption that most people have is that he didn't like the city or that he didn't like the market. I don't know. He bought a downtown condo over $1 million in August. You don't make that commitment if that's not a place you want to be. So this is all a long-winded answer to say, I don't freaking know. That's the hardest thing for a reporter to say sometimes, but it's honest. And I don't know. I don't know. And he is the same.
Can I follow up with that, Steve, before you get to your question? I'm sorry. Just here, because we love Reddit. Here's the salacious rumor on Reddit. Are you ready?
Oh, God.
You can dispel this one. The rumor is from some guy that there was maybe a division of political, how can I say this delicately? There's some guys who were Trump guys and guys who were not. Pierre-Luc Dubois was clearly not. And there were some guys in the dressing room who took COVID seriously and some guys who did not. And the rumor was that PLD got COVID and he believed it was from people maybe potentially who didn't take it seriously and we're in the dressing room with him. That's the rumor on Reddit. Can you dispel that? And maybe he said, okay, I've had enough with this team. I know that sounds ridiculous.
I mean, I can't dispel that.
Okay.
But just to be clear, I'm not saying that maybe it's true. I'm just saying, wow.
Same, man. Same.
Well,
we said the same, but I figured I'd run it by you.
To be honest with you, I've not heard the COVID aspects of this, not the I got COVID and I'm mad at you for giving it to me aspect. I've not heard that one. I've had Twitter people suggest, because there are some guys on the team they're clearly of different political there's some conservatives in the room. Seth Jones, Zach Wierenski, Nathan Gerbe. But I that to me is absurd that Pierre-Luc Dubois wants out because of political affiliation. But I've not heard the COVID wrinkle to this. No.
Well, Reddit continues to be the bastion of truth.
Well, Reddit is. Last time I was on Reddit, I got absolutely flamed because when I worked at the Columbus Dispatch, we broke the story that Nick Foligno was going to be the next captain of the Blue Jackets. And we just got killed because we weren't supposed to report that because the team wanted to announce it. And I'm like what? Like, what do you think we do for a living?
Good job.
It was on and on. Like, really? Like, I'll never forgive him. How awful this is to ruin the surprise.
Do you think I wear a lanyard as a tie? Like, I'm not wearing this because I think it looks good.
Exactly. Anyways.
Well, so then the question becomes Laine and Tortorella.
Yeah.
What's that going to be like?
Well, you know what? Here's my prediction. So if this were just the two of them in a vacuum, I would agree with a lot of people who think, oh yeah, there'd be some stuff there. If I know anything about John Tortorella, and I know a little bit about him, he is going to shower this kid with praise publicly. Shower him with praise. He's going to love Patrik Laine, even if he doesn't love Patrik Laine. He's going to love him because this is what it has to be. Because Dubois left, this new guy comes in. I go back to the Thomas Vanek acquisition at the trade deadline, where everyone's like, "Oh God, Vanek and Tortorella. Oh God, this is gonna be bad." And Tortorella just loved Vanek publicly because he's a bit of a contrarian, John Tortorella. And what everyone thought was going to happen, he was going to do. He was going to be the opposite of that. So I think, if he has a situation with Laine, then you've got alarms going off all over the place. I think even if they've got some defensive zone issues, which people seem to think they're going to, I don't think we're going to hear about it because I think John Tortorella is going to do everything he can to prop him up.
This was many years ago, but Steve Simmons famously said on our podcast of Darcy Tucker when he was with the Leafs, Darcy said he didn't read anything from the media, and Steve Simmons responded, Darcy Tucker knew where the commas were.
Excellent.
I get the impression John Tortorella might be the same guy.
I think they're all that way. Like, I don't think he reads it daily. I don't think he reads game stories and stuff like that. But they all, I've really never met anybody who truly doesn't know what's out there or care. And I think it gets back to him, and I think he reads the stuff that he knows is coming. Like, I think he's been reading the last couple of days.
Maybe. Okay. So there was, sorry, and to get back to PLD for a sec, because I wanted to ask this. So he will not say why he wanted out. That's private. And okay, I guess I can respect that. What was extraordinarily public, though, is him playing 3 minutes and 55 seconds in a game, and the final shift is him going for a public skate.
Yeah.
What was that all about, and why wasn't he simply kept out of the lineup?
So he never played for the Blue Jackets after that shift. That was his last shift as a Blue Jacket. And it's not my job or my desire, of course, to protect or defend John Tortorella, but there's not a coach in this league that doesn't have repercussions for a shift like that, right? I mean, you watch that shift. That's not a guy whose headspace is too busy with where he's going next and what this is like. That's a shell of a hockey player right there. Now, was he right to bench him for the remainder of the game? Should Dubois have been out? We're talking a close game against the Tampa Bay Lightning home opener. Should he have been back out for the second period, the third period, something? I'll listen to that. But, as a coach, you cannot abide that shift and not have some sort of disciplinary action, or you lose the other guys on the bench. He would not have played. So even if they didn't make the trade with Winnipeg, he was not going to be in the lineup Saturday. And my sense is he was not going to play again for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And
you're totally right that there need to be consequences for that play, or whatever you call it. Maybe the lack of play. But to me, it's one of those fool me once, shame on you. I'm going to screw it up like George Bush. But this was not the first game this season that Dubois was scratched. So is this sort of, what was it, his final chance to show him and he didn't?
Well, he hadn't been scratched previously. He'd been
not scratched, benched, sorry.
Benched, yeah. He'd been benched previously. And for any player, that's typically a wake-up call. I don't think they liked any of his games. The quote from Tortorella is that, it started at this level and it just eroded in the 5 games. The people close to Dubois insist that he was not playing to get traded, that he was not tanking to force the trade. It sure looked like it. I guess I'll take their word for it, but that's what it looked like, because we all know what he's capable of, right? And that's not a 70% shift from Dubois or 70 whatever percent of who he is. That's a huge departure for him, and that's a incredibly unacceptable level of competitive spirit for any NHL guy. That trade had to happen. He left John Tortorella no choice. And John Tortorella left Jarmo Kekalainen no choice but to act quickly.
What's been the fan reaction? Obviously, you get a lot of mentions. You saw some crazy things this weekend, obviously. What Columbus fans, do they feel like this is a guy they really invested in and saw as a big part of the future? What's the reaction to all of this bit?
Well, I think they're even more pissed off that they can't be in the building now because they want to boo him. Right? But, really, if you're a guy who's trying to play your way out of town, this is the perfect time to do it because there's nobody in the building. So that date, whenever that happens, will be circled by the locals. You know that. Yeah, I think they were really frustrated. At first, they were heartbroken. At first, they thought it was BS that he wanted to be traded because he wouldn't really come out and emphatically say it. Once that became apparent, I think people were heartbroken. I think people here are sort of hardwired to be defensive of Columbus. It's sort of an underappreciated, underrated town in a lot of people's eyes. They're defensive about that. They want it to be considered with some of the great cities in this country. So that hurts a little bit. The reputation's forming a little bit. Let's not kid ourselves. But, and I think when news broke Friday that they're close to a trade with Laine and Roslovic, people at first were like, there's no effing way they're getting both of those guys for him. And then by the time the sun came up Saturday and a trade was done, I think people were pretty freaking delighted about the return to get an elite level player back. I think the assumption was that Dubois would go out the door and come back for a prospect, a player, and some picks, but not a guy with 40, 50 goal potential.
And, on a broader sense, and you sort of made mention of it there, we talked about in the last few years, some of the players that Columbus has had, acquired, not been able to hang on to for whatever reason. We have Panarin, Bobrovsky, Duchesne, Dzingel. Maybe some of those guys are not guys that they wanted to hang on to, but there have been some big names, and now Pierre-Luc Dubois who have left town. What are some of the challenges that Jarmo Kekalainen faces with a town like Columbus in terms of, selling players on it being a great place to play? Because everything we've heard, and I've been to Cleveland, I've been to Cincinnati, I've been to Dayton, I've been everywhere in Ohio except Columbus. So I don't know. But what is it about Columbus that is a stumbling block or a seeming stumbling block for certain NHL players?
Yes, I think two things. Columbus surprises a lot of people because its national reputation does not match what many people think is its local reality if you live in it. It is, so you mentioned Columbus or Cleveland and Cincinnati. Those are considered the two major spots in Ohio. Columbus's population, for what that's worth, the population of Columbus is bigger than both of those cities combined by 250,000 people.
Wow.
Like that's how it's bigger than Boston in terms of city population.
Wow.
That staggers people. I think it's 13th or 14th in the U.S. for what that's worth. The point is, it's a large city with a huge university in it. So you've got typically, there's usually stuff going on in Columbus, Ohio. There's a lot of places to hang out, restaurants, bars. If you're a 23-year-old player, this is a pretty good spot to be. Largest university in the country. So it doesn't have a great reputation for people outside who for years have just seen it as a college town. Most college towns are much smaller. Ann Arbor, Lincoln, right? Not these sprawling large cities. The problem that I think they're having, it would be easier to fix whatever it is. They have a player retention problem, as you mentioned. I think that's probably the safest way to put it, because there's so many ways that guys have left town or reasons that they've wanted to leave town. It would be easier to fix if there was one thing that was the problem, one recurring theme that kept catching them up with players. But if you go through them, nobody knows what's up with Dubois or why he wants to leave. Maybe time will reveal that. Panarin loved Columbus, Ohio. He just wanted to live in New York and dreamed all of his life of being a Ranger. There's not much you can do with that. Sergei Bobrovsky would have lived here the rest of his life. He loved Columbus, Ohio, but they weren't going to make him the highest paid goalie in the league because they had Merzlikins and Korpisalo coming. Rick Nash, probably the most famous player in the franchise's history. He asked to be traded back in 2011-12 because he didn't think that they could win here. He was right, by the way, back then. You go through the list of them. Adam Foote played his way out to go back to Colorado because he just wanted to be an Avalanche before he wrapped it up. There are several players. Jack Johnson wanted to be traded because he wasn't in their top six. Ended up the next year in Buffalo. Should he have been in their top six? That's another podcast. So there's so many different reasons. It's not, no one has said it's so bleak there. I can't stand it because it's pretty hopping city most days. No one has said there's not, nice neighborhoods or great neighborhoods. It's all over the map. It doesn't have the ocean. It's never going to have the ocean. It's not a huge New York City metro type scene like that. It's not Chicago like that either. It doesn't have the history of Toronto, Montreal, certainly. But yeah, but it's a reputation that has formed, and they may have to, in the short term, start overpaying to keep guys. Because if Laine leaves, if Seth Jones leaves, I think that's the deal. Seth Jones, it's going to be really how you take the temperature of the organization, and they may need to overpay to keep both of those guys and just nip that in the bud before it starts to grow legs.
I had a suspicion before the season began that Kekalainen was too quiet, and he wasn't done by a long shot. And this trade isn't even what I meant. Something along these lines. What's he up to? I know it's difficult. It's difficult now that the season has begun and everything, and it's certainly more restrictions than in recent years. But he's got permission to spend ownership's money this year, right?
He does, yeah, and they want to win. This is a crossroads type season. This next stretch for Columbus is really, really important. Tortorella's in his last year. Where they go with that, I'm not sure he's back next year, frankly. Seth Jones can be extended July 1st. Nick Foligno, the captain, longest serving captain in franchise history, beloved member of the community, is up after this year. They have a goalie that they need to move soon, either Korpisalo or Merzlikins. They're both UFAs in 2 years. There's no way they can keep both of those and let one of them walk away. And they've got, as I said, Seth Jones on the horizon 2 years out, Zach Werenski 2 years out. I mean, these are major foundational direction of the organization type pieces that he has to confront, i.e., I'm with you where this season has a feel about it to me. And this is another reason why he had to act so quickly, where it's similar to how he behaved, Kekalainen, that is, at the trade deadline a couple of years ago, where if this team is in the hunt and looks like they are going to make the playoffs, I think he does everything he can to help them. And now at the top of the list, of course, is a rental center, much like Duchesne was. You mentioned Duchesne earlier. Duchesne's a guy that people talk about having left Columbus too. He was a pure rental. And they didn't even offer him a contract the following offseason because they deemed that he was going to be in a price point that wasn't relative to how they could use him in the lineup as a number one center. And Dubois needed to be that guy. So you're going to pay Duchesne as a number one, but you have to play him kind of as a two because he's got top center skill, but he can't check the other team's best players. An odd fit in that spot. So he walked. They had no interest in keeping Dzingel. But I think I think he's going to be extremely active at this year's trade line because it could be a send-off for Tortorella and perhaps Foligno.
Wow. Holy smokes. Wow. Okay, well, Aaron Portzline, I got to say, this is one of my favorite interviews ever.
Can I throw in one question, Adam, before we go?
Yeah, no. Please. Sorry, Jesse. Yeah, of course.
We thought the Buckeyes would give a better performance in the championship game versus Alabama. Do you think they're going to have enough roster turnover and bring in enough recruits next year to get back to the national championship?
Let me get my Ohio State colleagues on the phone here. Look, I mean, college football it's college women's basketball used to be, isn't it? Where there's UConn. Which is Alabama.
Yeah.
And there's two other teams maybe that can play with them. And then there's the outlier every year. I mean, it's the three of the four teams the same every year in college football. And one of them is Ohio State. So my assumption is they'll reload and be magnificent again. Yeah. Why not?
Dude.
I also agree with football.
Yeah, well, Aaron Portzline, The Athletic. What a crazy weekend. Thank you for making time for us today. Fascinating interview on just the state of things in Columbus. This was so illuminating and curious to see how it all works out, especially the Patrick Laine part. Torts is going to love him whether he loves him or not. Love that quote. So thank you for your time today. This is not going to be the last time. It's the first of many.
Well, awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Had a good time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Man,
This is a trade with a lot. Like sometimes trades happen. You're like, oh, that was a big trade. This is a trade with a lot.
there was a lot to
So much.
unpack there. The bomb was Dubois was offered 8 times 8.
Yeah.
Did we know that?
I didn't. Maybe it's out there, but I didn't know it.
Man.
Which, well, and what's funny is it gels with the thing he just said. The Blue Jackets potentially bringing back Matt Duchene. Well, they would never bring him back for that dollar amount for that role. That dollar amount was $8 million. That's what he signed in Nashville for. And that's what they offered Dubois.
And they've given Johansson and Duchene that, and neither are the pure number one they were hoping.
Oh, yeah, because Johansson,
He got 8
he extended and
eight
then
over 8.
traded? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. It is. Well, and what's funny, I go, the exchange was basically, are Columbus going to be big sellers or big buyers? And he said yes. Right? Like, there are so many. Columbus, because of the realities, I guess, of the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a small market, but they operate that way.
Yep.
They do gotta kind of make the best of their windows. So even though you could look at this season as, well, you could trade Merzlikins and you can trade Werenski and you could trade Jones. Like, if they wanted, they could get a king's ransom for a bunch of the bigger guys on their roster. But you kind of got to go for it.
Yeah.
You have a bit of a window, and the window's closing.
Yep.
Like, so if you trade these guys and you're bad, well, you knew that anyway. I mean, you might as well be all the way bad, I guess. Mm-hmm. Isn't this the best year to be bad? Also, it's not going to affect Gate.
And you also have the excuse that, it's a pandemic,
Yeah.
If you have a bad season this year.
But you just got Patrick Laine.
Right.
But you could also just trade Patrick Laine. I don't know what the right answer is, but yeah, it's true. They do have a player retention problem, and sometimes there's reasons, sometimes not so much. Put it this way, they sure seem to get unlucky a lot.
Yes. Yeah, like we said with Cappy, sure seems to get unlucky a lot.
Well, you make your own luck.
Leafs take the Flames 3-2. Strong game again for the Leafs, who now sit second in the division with the Canadiens. Not lost a game in regulation. What's interesting, and I'm going to read this directly from Chris Johnson's article on sportsnet.ca. This is from Sheldon Keefe. It's our 7th game in 12 days, and traveling out here and then having to play at a 2:00 time. It's a tough ask. And then you're playing against a rested team. This one we felt would not be pretty. Now, it wasn't. It was not a pretty game. And Eric Francis, I think, summed it up perfectly. He's like, by game's end, the Leafs had celebrated 3 fortuitous bounces that found the net to hand Markstrom and the Flames their first regulation loss of the season. And that's sort of true. That Wayne Simmons goal, though, did that not feel cathartic? Even though it goes off his own skate and in, who cares how it goes in? Wayne Simmons,
upset.
Scarborough scores, Toronto Maple Leafs. Amazing.
That's a guy who scored a lot of goals because he was like, it wasn't the goal I wanted, though. Like, isn't that what it looked like?
It was his 100th power play goal, 500th NHL point.
That's
and
unbelievable.
It's not the goal I wanted. Yeah, you're right. I guess at 500 points, you can make that distinction.
If you go on NHL.com/stats and you select seasons 2011 to 2012 through 2020 to 2021, and you select power play goals, Wayne Simmons comes up as number 3.
In the last decade.
In the last decade, 9 years. He's behind Ovi and Stamkos. Ovi's got 162 power play goals. Stamkos has 106, and Wayne Simmons at 3rd is 97th.
I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years.
Pretty damn good on the power play.
So when stats nerd Dom Lucian says that putting him on the first unit over Nylander is a, quote, choice. Although we did sort of talk about that last episode as well.
yeah.
There's a stat for you, Dom. Third in 9 years.
Jesse and Dom are fighting it out again. Jesse v. Dom, part 2 coming soon. It was
you take your game score, and I'll show you a guy who played the game and scored. Am I right there, Dom? Sorry.
So that was great to see. I think the best part about Wayne Simmons' goal, other than Wayne's reaction, was Mitch Marner's. That picture of him just grabbing him from behind. That felt like vintage Mitch Marner, did it not?
It did. And
like 7-Up Mitch Marner.
Two guys who, when they're in their best mood, seem like the best teammates on the entire planet. Mitch Marner and Travis Dermott. Just completely just, way to go, buddy. You can do it. It's like almost too positive. Like, I am halfway through my coffee. You need to calm down. I am not 22.
For all the negative stuff talking about Mitch Marner, he leads the league in points. Like, he's number 1, and that's it.
But I'm mad.
I just want to know what, like, he's not immune from criticism, but I want to know what people want.
What more could you ask from the staff?
At 10.9 million, that's what I want.
And he's doing it though.
But he is.
Have you seen any criticism from me? Have you seen any criticism?
This is what I want. No. He's doing
I've
what
been
you
banging
want.
that drum all season. I said it a few games ago. Mitch Marner looks like a man possessed. He does. This is what we wanted last year.
It's good.
That the Tavares goal to the game winner against the Oilers, but it's a tip from a Marner shot. I'm sorry. I don't think there's many players in the league stare down Leon Draisaitl in that position and go, I'm going to wait him out. Like, I cannot believe he did that. I can't believe Draisaitl played it the way he did, but Mitch Marner, like, it's hockey IQ.
Good? Are you saying Mitch Marner is good at hockey? Because he is, and they're paying him to be good at it, and he's been great.
But in like Brave, he saw the play unfold and he went, I'm going to beat Draisaitl here. And then he did.
The swagger is back. Yeah. The swagger is back.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah. We haven't seen this since his contract year. That's how it feels. We could be wrong. He had a good year last year, but was it 100 points that he got with Tavares in the first year?
It was 90 something. It was
90,
absolutely ridiculous. Well, I'm forgetting Tavares had 47 goals.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Then the next year he changes to play with Matthews, who had 47 goals.
Now, Mitch Marner becomes the third fastest Leaf, by the way, to hit 300 points ever.
Wild.
Pretty amazing. Okay.
And who were the other two guys from the 30s?
I don't know. I would think it was
Charlie Conacher, and I can't remember the other one.
And Boots Buckle.
Sprague Leghorn.
Yeah.
Billy McFist Williamson.
Now, this tweet, I think, is a direct shot at the cross the bow at Steve Dangle. Are you ready?
Oh.
Now, just for a little bit of context here, what happened between the love of my life, Jack Campbell, and Matthew Tkachuk? What happened?
Jack Campbell was in the Leafs net doing what he does best. And that was stopping pucks, and while the puck is in the offensive zone, preparing meals for the less fortunate. That is how perfect he is. Oh, he's looking up from the sandwich he's making going, Mitch, you're doing great. And then he gets back to it. And when the puck comes the other way, he goes, puts his gloves back on, and then he makes the big save. He is absolutely perfect. Matthew Tkachuk pulls out a knife.
Not actually.
Sorry, I can't even go
Two
along
knives
with it.
attached to his feet.
2 knives.
He straps him on his feet because he's crazy.
Let's say he carved I hate kids into the knives. One of the benefit of having 2 is you can carve one with the other. But anyway, I can't even go along with the bit. Matthew Tkachuk pulled the Keith Primo falling on purpose to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
I've fallen and I can't get up. He was
and he was on top of Jack Campbell,
shoved viciously by TJ Brody. He was not at all. Not even. Please watch with your eyes. He fell on Jack Campbell, and it sure looked like he intentionally lifted his knee and drove it into Campbell. I don't know if it was his head or his neck or his shoulder. It didn't look comfortable, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess in the words of the great Jesse Pinkman, he can't keep getting away with it. But he sure seems to.
Now, let's have a look at this tweet. And before I tell you who, because it's a well-known person.
No, read Berkshire's tweet.
No, it's not Berkshire's tweet.
It's not Berkshire's tweet?
No, pull up Berkshire's tweet. Jesse, can you pull up Berkshire? I don't even know what Berkshire's tweet was. This one I saw, I'm like, oh, this is about Steve for sure. This is your regularly scheduled, quote, another Canadian city is pissed off about his bullshit reminder that Matthew Tkachuk rules.
Oh, the Drance tweet.
Thomas Drance.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been.
I know it was. It probably wasn't, but it still kind of made me laugh.
Sorry, here's the Berkshire tweet.
Not happy. Okay.
Leafs Twitter is very upset about Tkachuk falling on Campbell, which looked pretty bad, but was also kind of funny because it was so cartoony. The level of upset reminds me of when Gianta smoked Reimer.
Oh.
And Leafs Twitter thought Gianta purposely clipped him with his back elbow. Now,
I'm on Berkshire's team here. I think people are overreacting. And by people, I mean Stephen.
Oh, you're right. This is why I don't do night of videos.
Right.
That it's not just sleep. It's I need to sleep on it. So maybe took it a little too far, but I will say this: it's a dirty play for sure.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Yeah, but I don't know if that means he rules. Like,
I think it rules to see Toronto teams get their goalie's head kicked in. It does. I mean, you got to understand from out, like, how much do you love seeing the Houston Astros lose, even though they made it all the way to the finals? How much do you love seeing the New York Yankees be less successful? I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Everybody hates us.
Oh, Pest does something bad to big bad team. Like, come on. We knew this was coming.
Big bad team who is also pathetic.
Yeah, but we're still the big bad boys, you know?
I guess,
and
man.
But Pest poked the bear.
Boy. Here, okay, so I think there's 3 schools here. And the Leafs have only played 4 teams.
Which one can I drop out of, Steve? Which school?
Wow, all of them, Adam. You can drop out of all of them. It's your favorite thing. So, no, okay. Go. The Leafs have not played every Canadian team this season, but we're slowly figuring out who's who. And here is the theory that I came up with as soon as the season began, and we're seeing how it's going to switch. Habs fans hate the Leafs. Oilers fans hate Leafs fans. Canucks fans hate Leafs coverage.
Interesting.
Now you'll notice the Flames aren't in there because for some reason, like, I don't know, I've been doing this for quite some time. And even when it's got like heated and Kadri, made that gesture to Gianta and he got suspended for it. Like it was still just kind of like, we don't like you. We don't like you right back. We'll see you in 4 months. Like it was never heated really ever. Mm-hmm. So last night I was like, I don't even know what to do with my hands because I've never been mad at you before. Like it was like, I was like half a Flames fan for a while. Who wasn't cheering for them in 2004?
Everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody.
When the Leafs had Phaneuf,
Lightning fans and Oilers fans, but
when the Leafs had Phaneuf, were Flames fans kind of cheering for the Leafs because that was their boy, or was it like we hate you because you used to play for us? I don't remember.
I was in Calgary and Phaneuf was traded. Like I got to Calgary after the Phaneuf trade.
Yeah.
Oh, they hated Phaneuf.
They hated him. Okay,
yeah, they didn't like him.
I didn't know how they
hated him.
Oh, okay.
Loser. We loved you. Then you're a loser.
Yeah.
We'll take you in white. Thank you very much.
They love staging.
Staging, who played for 8 million years afterwards. There's no question.
He played more games as a Flame than a Leaf. I can't believe that.
Crazy.
It felt like he was a Leaf forever.
So I actually remember one of my favorite tweets coming out of the lockout, and this is terrible. This is a long time ago. It's like, oh my God, the teams are back. Shh, nobody tell Matt Stajan. That was a Flames fan tweeted that. Yeah, it was mean. So and he played 6 more years. So like whatever. But the thing is with the Flames is there's never been a reason for Toronto and Calgary to hate each other because, I mean, really, they never play. Like, Edmonton. Well, but because here's the thing, Edmonton's the smaller of the 2 cities, even in Alberta. So they already hate the Flames. They've got a little bit of the we're going to fight everybody sort of mentality, right? And Calgary's like laissez-faire. Yeah, Edmonton. Okay, fine. We don't like Vancouver. When I was in Calgary, the team everybody hated there was like a grudging respect for the Oilers. They hate the Canucks.
The
Capital
Canucks
H.
they had won back-to-back President's trophies.
True.
When you were there. So this whole
true.
country hated Vancouver. Like,
Right.
Remember the tweet from the LA Kings Twitter account that used to be the big thing? Hey, the rest of Canada, you're welcome. And Canucks fans were so upset. And the rest of the country was like, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who cheers for Goliath?
Nobody.
You're supposed to cheer for David.
But Calgary and Toronto are fighting over Goliath, and Montreal is out here doing it. Like they're number one. I mean, right now, 6-7 games in.
So, I mean, no disrespect to the Montreal Canadiens here, but this is a problem with early in this season in particular, just the way the schedule's gone. I'm watching what Montreal did to Vancouver, and I'm like, are the Habs really good? Are the Canucks really bad? Or is it both? Could be both. Could be one. Could be neither. I don't know. It's very interesting, but it's funny that back-to-back games you go, see, Habs dominating, and I'm like, you didn't see that they just played the same team? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna have a clear answer on okay, no, this team's looking like the best until at least second week of February.
Fair enough. That's fair. Now,
also, the Leafs don't get to play the Jets while they're waiting on Dubois to arrive, and I think that sucks.
Oh, that is a bummer.
Should be getting a shorthanded team, and they don't have a single scheduled game against them.
So let me ask you this, guys. Vaunted superstar, Toronto legend Tyler Ennis. The scuttlebutt, as we've mentioned a couple of times, is that, wow, he's on waivers, guys. On waivers from the Oilers. Leafs should claim him. Because the Leafs are apparently the NHL's vacuum cleaner. We're able to just pick up everybody else's scraps, no problem. Let's not worry about the cap. Let's not worry about roster spots. We'll put Spets on waivers. Who cares? Now, let me ask you this. I'm going to run you down the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup. And even if you're not a Leafs fan, I think you're going to be able to see where I'm getting. Tyler Ennis plays what position, Steve?
He's a left-handed, but I think he's right wing.
Okay. Because what I've heard is that everybody's thinking Tyler Ennis left wing. Because
he can play
where the
either
Leafs
way.
have an issue. He can play on either wing, but he actually is listed as a left winger on the Oilers.
There you go.
And
I just remember him playing right for the Leafs.
Yeah. So we got, here's the top line. Vesey, Matthews, Marner. Second line, Nylander, Tavares, Hyman. Third line, Mikheyev, Kerfoot, Simmons. Fourth line, right now, Barabanov, Engvall, and Spezza. Let me ask you this. Which line does Tyler Ennis actually replace an NHL player on? Now, I know that we say our left side is a little bit weaker, but Vesey's look good. Nylander's Nylander. Mikheyev's look good, although sometimes his shot is weird. Barabanov, maybe?
I like him, but he shouldn't have a concrete spot in the lineup. So it's either Barabanov or you take out Engvall, throw Spezza back in the middle, and then you get, one of Barabanov or Ennis plays the off wing. Here's why, Adam.
So you want to throw your team into cap hell and roster spot hell so you can replace your fourth line left winger?
Yeah. Steve, I got a question when you're done.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you do it. I think the Leafs do it. I think they, and I would encourage them to. I think they should claim Tyler Ennis.
Okay.
And here's why. Look at the border situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Canadian team, essentially you have 6 other teams to trade with this year. Who are you just willing to acquire? Like you're going to pay assets to acquire it, and they're just not going to play for you for 2 weeks. Unless you try to evoke the come on clause with old Doug. It's awfully difficult. And now you have an opportunity to get a player for free. No quarantine, no nothing. You never know who's going to get hurt and when. And here's the problem. Someone gets hurt the very next game. All of a sudden, how many spares you got now? And then you're one more injury away from disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage the Leafs to go and get Tyler Ennis because this is an unusual situation. This is a player you're familiar with. He's coming from another Canadian team. You're in Alberta currently. You can literally claim him off waivers and just hand him a jersey physically because he's there. I think they should claim him. This is a very rare opportunity.
And, we want a guy, James Neal's I think he's penciled in right now on the left wing of the fourth line for the Oilers, just because I think he's just coming back from injury. So I think they're just probably working him in. That's according to Daily Faceoff. But Tyler Ennis, once James Neal moves up, because you got Nuge on the first line of the left wing, you've probably got James Neal second line playing with Draisaitl and Yamamoto. And then you're going to have Dominic Cahoon and Tyler Ennis. So you're going to take a guy who can't stay on the not in the playoffs Oilers in their top four lines.
Well, and we talk about
guys, has anybody watched Tyler Ennis in the last few years? Do we know this guy's, no offense to Tyler Ennis, this is a guy with serious back problems already, which he rehabbed in Toronto. He was okay here. He was okay. He was pluggable. Now, I understand that it was in the Babcock era. I get it. But what role is Tyler Ennis going to play on this team? A little penalty kill?
You need pluggable guys, though. That's the problem.
They have pluggable guys, though.
Adam,
they have a ton of How many Nick Patans does this team need?
Adam.
Never enough.
I know you have a child, but what is your thing against protection? So there's a taxi squad. There's a taxi squad on this roster. Mm-hmm. You could scratch guys. What is against just having a warm body just in case in this COVID season you need a warm body to plug in your lineup? Tyler Ennis is a free warm body sitting there for the Leafs to claim without giving up anything. You claim them. Do
we have the room? Do we have the roster space? Do we have the cap space?
If they do, they'll do it. I'm not the capologist here. Yeah. If they have the room, they should do it because you can throw them there and just have it sit. The players on your taxi squad don't count against the cap. They can just sit there. And then if anything happens, you have that protection and Tyler Ennis to put in your lineup.
If the Leafs claim him, he has to be on the roster. If he goes to the taxi squad, he's got to go through waivers. And by the way, the Leafs are among the top teams in the NHL. What are the chances that the Leafs put in a claim for him and some other team hasn't already?
So I believe it's still based on last year's standings. Mm-hmm. So they're middle-ish of the pack-ish.
And then they don't get him. Then nothing's gone. Nothing. They didn't gain anything. Didn't lose anything.
I think you have to have, in my opinion, you got to know what you have with the guys that you have. Tyler Ennis is not going to be a difference maker on this team, guys. He's not. You can't tell me that he's better than. Is he that much better than Travis Boyd, Nick Patan, Dennis Malgin?
What if two of those guys get injured?
What if? If
that's the thing. You have to protect yourself against what if.
You claim
what
him.
What ifs happen?
I think you claim him literally just to claim him. And if you have to throw him back on waivers, who cares?
Exactly.
Who cares? You could literally use him for these 3 more games in Alberta and then be like, we can't do it. And then throw him back on waivers and you got 3 free games.
Steve, this man has a family. This man has a family. And you're going to throw him on the roster for a week and then throw him back to waivers?
He doesn't have to go anywhere. He's got to do 3 hours of driving, I'm pretty sure, and that's it.
He just give him back his old jersey. Could be a Leaf for 3 games and then go back to Edmonton and be an Oiler again.
Tyler, pack both jerseys. You can literally do that. You could Spezza. He cleared waivers. I can't remember what the situation with Barabanov is or Engvall. They have some flexibility here, though. I think they do it. I think they should do it. It's a rare opportunity.
All right.
Free guy.
Guys.
Free guy.
I can't wait till the 2021 Stanley Cup is awarded. And there'll be nobody in the stadium. It'll be the Leafs, winning, by the way. Be the Leafs.
They'll play it in Tampa and it'll be 22,000.
Yeah, that's true. And it'll be that Miley Cyrus TikTok tailgate thing for 22,000 frontline workers, which is an actual thing, by the way. They're doing a TikTok tailgate with Miley Cyrus at the Super Bowl this year.
For healthcare workers.
Yeah, and for frontline workers, don't forget that part. That is important.
It's a really long title.
Sure is. So when they hoist that cup in Tampa Bay, right after the TikTok tailgate with Miley Cyrus for frontline workers. And they get on the mic, and John Tavares he's the guy who's holding the cup. He's the Toronto guy. Who's the first guy he passes it to? It's going to be Tyler Ennis.
You know what? This is the part.
Conn Smythe winner, Tyler Ennis.
Adam, if it's
going to make
team,
all
he's not
the
even going to
difference
be on it. So
in the world is Tyler Ennis.
Okay, the Leafs win the cup with Tyler Ennis. You're not allowed to celebrate. There.
That's not the way it
You're
works.
not allowed to celebrate.
No, that's
these are
not
the rules.
the way it works.
It's 100% the way it works.
That's not the way it works.
Here, this is the part where I make Adam feel bad. So Myrtle jumped in the conversation today, and he was like, "Oh, I wonder if the Leafs do it because Ennis was a popular teammate," and he was. And then I remembered a story that I've told this before. Austin Matthews would frequently visit sick kids' hospital unannounced, and his tag along for many of those visits to sick kids' hospital was Tyler Ennis.
Nobody said he was a bad guy.
And Adam said he's a bad guy.
I'm on your side, Steve, but that's not.
Adam said he hates children.
Also, he racks up a ton of assists. He must be a good person.
That's
the kind of
not
player
what I remember you saying.
Never scores, but assists on a bunch of shit.
Yeah, I never heard you say that. I never heard you say that. You hate hospitals in general.
It's true.
You don't believe in them. Adam doesn't believe in them.
I wouldn't do a tailgate for frontline workers, that's for sure.
Adam is a next level conspiracy theorist. You like anti-maskers? No, he's anti-hospitalers. He doesn't believe in them. He thinks they're a conspiracy, like the birds. Birds are fake.
Was Adam the Joker pressing the button to blow up all the hospitals?
It's not QAnon, it's Q Adam. Okay, so just get it right next time, CNN. Okay,
it's just you with that the horn thing on your head.
All right. So, a couple of last minute things before we get to the press conference because we do need to have time for that. I was going to get into some standings around the league, but we'll save that question for next time. Mm-hmm. To follow up on the Babcock conversation from last episode, Steve Simmons, and this is one of those moments where you're like, "Wow, my arch enemy and I completely agree with each other." Steve Simmons had a quote today. Jesse, I told you I was going to throw this to you because you have the clip, you have the thing in front of you. Read for us what Steve Simmons' take on the Babcock piece on The Athletic. What did he have to say about Mike Babcock?
Yeah, so this is in his Sunday piece. I am saying that because I was delaying in pulling up the quote. Here it is. Mike Babcock's next job should be university professor. He could teach revisionist history. Babcock peddled a bunch of truths and half-truths to TSN's Pierre LeBrun in an exclusive interview the other day. If this was written as a book, it would have been termed fiction instead of nonfiction. And really, Babcock has to give up on the I am a mental health advocate platform when there would be a long list of former players who would gladly disagree with that claim. The Marner family was so upset about Babcock's treatment of Mitch and aren't happy with Babcock peddling the all is well mantra that if you go back, Marner's father refused to go on the dad's trip one season with the Leafs. The reason? He didn't want a thing to do with the coach. And that kind of behavior is pretty rare. Babcock begins with NBC on Sunday, who also added former Leaf Dominic Moore to their panel for this season. When Moore played for Babcock, or better yet, didn't play for Babcock, he had little use for the coach. Now they're teammates on NBC. Speaking of NBC, this last season for the NS, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, NBC Sports is shutting down.
That's the end of the quote on Babcock.
So, hard to disagree. And I didn't know that about the, I did know that Mitch Marner's mom was the one that made the trip on the dad's trip. I remember that. But I do remember in the contract negotiations, there were rumors about the Marner family saying, well, you screwed us on the bonuses and you didn't treat Mitch particularly well. Now, what was publicly available to us at the time was he demoted him to the fourth line for a little bit. Right. That's all we knew. But now that all this
is the information that you have.
Right. Now that this all comes out, you kind of go, well, that changes the picture just a little bit. Doesn't mean I agree with all of their tactics, but I can understand the reasoning. For sure. I get it. I'd be mad too. So, and I have to agree with Steve Simmons. I don't think you can be mental health advocate until you show some receipts here, man.
It was a little harsh, I think his wording was.
Oh, I don't know if there's any love lost between the two of them.
Yeah, he didn't.
Steve's not known for holding back, but would you not agree? Like it's hard to How do you take a guy seriously?
Well, here's the thing. He's absolutely right to call him out, and we did too last episode. So then what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, don't take care of yourself.
Well, no, you should take care of yourself.
No, well, exactly. Like, what do you...
It just might be that there are people better suited for that position. Fair?
Totally, but like, even if there is some hypocrisy there, shouldn't he steer people in the right direction?
Yeah.
Mental health wise, listen. I think the conclusion we're probably going to come away with after not too long is maybe it's not time to have him on that just yet, or potentially ever. Depends who you ask. People aren't willing to forgive and forget with this guy. Tortorella, I
don't know if it's this guy or this action.
No, I think it becomes this guy when it's a body of work.
Well, that's what I mean, though. It's these actions, I guess, is a better. It's
right.
It's not like it's a goal. He's got a hateable face, man. Mike Babcock had a parade when he came in here. It's not like people have been unfair. More than fair for many years. And it's hard. It's a good point. I think it's hard to take someone seriously when there's a history of this isn't good.
It is. I think what to come away with, he shouldn't have the job. Well, he's got it now. Mm-hmm. So like Adam said, now it's about receipts. It's not about rehabbing his image. It's about doing the right things.
Right.
100%. So he's got to go out and get some receipts.
Now, this weekend, we heard about the unfortunate and really sad passing of the greatest captain the Toronto Maple Leafs have ever had, George Armstrong. And Christina Rutherford did an incredible piece at sportsnet.ca that you absolutely must read. And actually, the Sportsnet tribute to him was amazing, too. And just kind of discussed what what kind of a humble man from humble origins grew up wanting to be a Leaf. A Canadian that was, his one side of his family Aboriginal, the other side Irish. That's a very Canadian story in and of itself, especially in, early century or early last century Ontario. And this guy kind of rose up through the ranks and worked his way onto this team and was captain for 12 years and 4 Stanley Cups. Unbelievable. This is a team with 11 total and he has 4 of them.
I think first, and I want to say only Leaf to ever play parts of 4 decades with the team, because he began in 49 and ended in 70.
Yeah. So Steve Dangle, with that, you wanted to talk about something, obviously, because there's a change that you want to make in your life because of this.
Yeah. So my jersey number's 10. And the real answer for why it's always been 10 is I never had a jersey number growing up because I didn't play. So, my wife wanted me to get my wife wanted to get me a Dangle jersey, in our first year of dating or whatever it was. Started dating 2007, March 2008 comes around my birthday. So it was our first birthday together. She wanted to get me a jersey. And she got Dangle on the back, and then she was talking to our dear friend Justin Fisher, noted Wayne Simmons fighter, Justin Fisher.
That's right. I was there.
And she's like, I don't know what number to put. So she asked me, whose jersey do you want? And I tried to pick a Leaf that I thought was going to be a Leaf for a long time. So I said, Alex Steen. I was wrong. He was traded 6 months later, but Alex Steen's number was 10. So you know what it was? It was Fisher convinced her, don't get him a Steen jersey, put 10 and Dangle. So that's how I got Dangle 10. It was a complete fluke. After Alex Steen, the only other Leaf to wear it in my time making videos was Brad May. He wore number 10. And it hasn't been worn for quite some time. George Armstrong was honored many years ago. His jersey was retired a few years ago. Once it was retired, that's when it started to feel weird wearing 10. I'm like, okay, this is his. And like James Van Riemsdyk changed his number before the game to give Salming his 21. You know what I mean? Now with Armstrong's passing, it doesn't feel right at all. I don't need to wear 10. So I thought about it. I was like, what numbers mean something to me? And I want to go with 20. It is actually the number that George Armstrong wore when he came into the league. I didn't know that actually until I started doing some research. It was the year my son was born. I know a lot of people didn't have a very good 2020, but I'll always look back on it fondly for that reason anyway. And number 20 is not retired. It's been worn many times. Frank Corrado, most notably. It's time.
Okay.
It's time for a jersey change. So I already ordered it, and I'll pick it up when it's ready.
Dan Gile, number 20.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. And
I mean, really, who cares?
The George Armstrong story, though, if you're a Leaf fan, boy, there's a guy that you need to know something about. It's pretty incredible. And it harkens back to a time when the Leafs were actually pretty successful. Super cool.
Yeah.
Wonder what that was like.
I don't know.
Now,
he's in all the pictures.
we are running out of time, but let's do a quick press conference, shall we?
One thing that broke just before we were recording is that John Chayka was suspended through the rest of this year.
What?
So
By who?
By the NHL. So I'm going to read this.
This Coyotes thing?
I'm going to read this release from the NHL. It's the article on Sportsnet. The NHL has suspended former Arizona Coyotes general manager John Chayka through December 31st as part of its ruling on a dispute over his departure from the team last summer, per Elliot Friedman. The league sent a memo to its team about this decision saying Chayka engaged in conduct detrimental to the league, breached his obligation to the club, and was properly terminated by the club. On July 26th, the Coyotes issued a statement saying that Chayka quit on the team and that the club was disappointed by his decision. In his own statement, Chayka said he left the team due to a situation created by ownership. Shortly after the split, Friedman reported that Coyotes owner had asked Bettman to adjudicate the divorce to clarify some contract issues between the two parties. That issue appeared to be whether the team allowed Chayka to pursue another opportunity. Friedman reported about 1 month before the divorce, another NHL team reached out to the Coyotes asking for permission to speak to Chayka about the job. The request was initially denied, but later permitted, and an offer Chayka couldn't refuse was made. The Coyotes made it clear the title's general manager or president of hockey could not be involved to prove that Chayka was not making a lateral move. And then his tenure came under more scrutiny on August 6th when the Coyotes acknowledged they had violated the league's terms with their conduct during the last combine testing.
Right, where they tested a bunch of players where they shouldn't.
Yeah. So I thought that was very big news.
So are they, what I'm unclear on is, did they suspend him for how he left the Coyotes or suspend him for how he handled the Coyotes?
No, it's for the termination of his contract with the Coyotes. Okay. So whatever happened in there, the NHL did their research on that, and they've determined that he needs to be suspended for the rest of 2021.
Now, is he not, that's not the calendar year though, right? Just the season?
No, the calendar year.
Whoa.
The year of 2021, he will be suspended until December 31st, and he cannot partake in any operations until January 1st, 2022.
Is he not with the Devils currently?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yes. So he is suspended.
11 months. That's serious.
Yeah. So
there's going to be more that comes out on that. I want to know more about that.
Friedman says he has not seen the full document yet, but they have released that he has been suspended for his breaking of the relationship with the Coyotes through the rest of this year.
They're sending a
calendar year.
They're sending a message. People break contracts in executive jobs all the time. It happens in the NHL all the time. This is the NHL dropping the hammer on somebody who thought, I can get out of line here. They do this from time to time where it's almost like what happened with the Caps, right? The punishment, sometimes you feel like, well, that doesn't fit the crime. It's a precedent setter. It's one of those where they're like, we're going after this before someone else tries it. That's what it feels like to me. Mm-hmm. But I got to read the article too. Maybe, I don't know how underhanded or bad or whatever. I'd like to see that document. Wow.
I want to read when the people smarter than us get their hands on the actual release, like the full document of the suspension from the NHL. And when they read it, I want to read that article.
Yes. Agreed. Now, quick press conference. Steve. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Sure. Well, I did just want to mention, had a lot of fun watching hockey this past weekend, not just the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I watched a little bit of NWHL on Twitch. I watched the Toronto Six's first game, a frustrating 3-0 loss in which they outshot their opponent 40-19. I thought that was very Toronto. And then the next game, they score the first goal in team history. They get a 5-1 lead and lose 5-6 in the shootout, which I thought was also very Toronto. So I'm hoping Digit and that Boston ownership group knock a little bit of the Toronto out of them, so that I can not cry about a Toronto hockey team just once. But it was so much fun. I highly recommend, not just for the entertainment value, but it is such a different experience watching hockey on Twitch with that chat going absolutely ballistic, with people donating subscriptions, and JT Brown was in there doing a ton. I saw who did I see? Steph Driver, a bunch of others. It was really, really fun, and it's free. It's just a click away. So NWHL on Twitch, and can't wait to watch the Toronto Six actually win a game.
The games are back at it tomorrow.
Amazing.
Let's go.
This question is from Andrew Cook. Andrew wants Adam to take a plate and eat some crow. There's been a couple questions like this that read, when will Adam admit that he was wrong about Montreal being overrated?
We're 6 games in.
What?
And I also picked them to make the playoffs.
But when everybody was hype on Montreal, you came on here and you said,
I said I'm not sold. That's all I said.
Exactly. So everybody's asking, is Adam sold?
No. They played
man.
6 fucking games, guys.
Okay.
When am I going to try games? 40, 50. Are you kidding me? They finished 24th last year. Or sorry, 23rd. And then
it was 24th.
Was it 24th? Oh, it was even the Blackhawks were ahead of them last year. Pump the brakes. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. And they do look like a much improved team. I mean, really. Yeah,
Of course they do.
They look great. They do.
So was the
I picked them to make the
was
playoffs.
the hype warranted?
The hype is, we don't know. Come on, eat crow, 6 games. You're a Montreal Canadiens fan. Your standards got to be better than 6 games, man. You have 26 cups or whatever it is, 25. Like, you got to have a higher standard than 6 games to get some guy from Toronto to admit, oh, the hype was real. Come on.
Funny, I'm looking at their season so far. So they got a 5-4 overtime game, a 5-1 win, 3-1 win, 6-5 shootout loss, 7-3 win, and a 5-2 win. And I'm like, boy, that reminds me a lot of how the Leafs win games. And now the Leafs are 5-2. They have an excellent record, but they're not scoring as much. And people are upset about it. Listen, you need to see more teams. No, you're not. But a lot of people, they just don't seem right. And I'm like, this is the best they've looked defensively in 5 years. What are you talking about? I just feel like you need to see more. And like, again, I said second week of February. We're still not going to know what the Habs are made of, because they got a few days off. Then they got to play 2 games against Calgary, and then they're right back to play in Vancouver again. They're not going to see their fourth team of this.
Vancouver's been bad.
They've been booty. They're not going to see their 5th team of the season until February 4th when they play.
We had 3 shows this week. Vancouver would be a big chunk of one of them. I hope we can make time for Vancouver and Thursday show, because there's a lot going on, and maybe that changes this week with Vancouver's games, but I don't know. Let me just throw this at you too with Montreal as it pertains to Montreal. They, to me, look like the most improved team this year in the NHL, without question. But the thing is,
not good.
What they haven't seen is any injuries. And I think you're going to see it. The Leafs have already seen it. There's other teams that have seen it. I'm not seeing big injuries out of Montreal. Good. That's a good thing. But you really do get to kind of test the mettle of a team when some big players do go down. So I'd like to see what exactly they have depth-wise. I got people on my Twitter mention saying, well, look at Montreal's depth. What are you talking about? Their best players are playing. What are you talking about?
Scory Perry, he got in the lineup and then he scored.
Yeah.
It's in his name.
Yeah, eat crow.
And he was on eat crow. And he was on waivers the week before. Is there something
when are you gonna apologize for calling him the worst player in the league?
Yeah. What's wrong with you?
Well, listen, we all know Corey Perry wanted to come to Toronto. We do know that.
We don't know that.
We kind of think that.
He's in his favorite city.
Sure.
Next question comes from Sean Red. Why is Jimmy Vesey in the top 6?
I don't understand why people are hating on him.
Yeah.
Like, things are going well.
It doesn't scream top line player, Jimmy.
Vesey is what you want Tyler Ennis to be. Younger, better, and probably more consistent. Jimmy Vesey's it. By the way, outside of last year, look at Jimmy Vesey's stats. Guy's an 18-goal scorer. And you laugh at that. 18 goals is not a joke.
It's okay. Listen, can you be big and in front of the net? And if I give you a wide open opportunity, can you bury it? He's had 2 wide open opportunities. He's buried both. So that's good. He had a great screen, a Darryl Boyce assist on the Matthews goal. Ended up being that was the Muzzin goal. Sorry. So first goal of the game. He kills penalties a little bit. Like, no, he's not a superstar for sure. But like, considering what's happened to the Leafs left side, he's doing his job. I'm not going to hate on him until he's not doing his job anymore.
You needed somebody with some finish on the third line that could jump into the first or second due to an injury. And look what you have.
Yeah, he can. I mean, he's not as fast as Ilya Mikheyev, but he's got a better shot. Like, oh my God, if Mikheyev could just shoot. If he could shoot, yes, I'd be right there with you, offering to drive VC, somewhere, anywhere but the top 2 lines so I can put Mikheyev there. But, oh my God, Mikheyev's driving me nuts, man.
Last question, Jess.
Last question. Will Adam say something nice about the Montreal Canadiens? Oh, wait, we already covered that.
I was like,
here's another question. When will Adam admit the Canadiens are good? Oh, here's another question. Tell Adam the Habs are great. Do you want more questions?
Man, does Down Goes Brown get this kind of shit? Because he wrote an entire article for a publication about this.
For The
Athletic.
Here's the difference. I don't think he cares.
Oh, okay. Man, were we wrong to speculate that a team that finished 24th last year?
Don't say we.
Who's we? I don't know who we is.
What the hell are you talking about?
Me and my
Adam,
people.
Are you French?
My people.
Who's we?
I don't know. Wow. Why? Were you guys out here waving the Canadiens flag going, they're going to win?
We didn't come in here with an agenda.
Jesse, you didn't even make the predictions because I forgot to ask. So I don't even know where you stand on this. You can't play this game.
No. For the last question, can you do, Steve, a breakdown on why the Leafs don't have a goalie controversy? Because we did get a lot of questions about how great Campbell looked.
Yeah. And you know who else has looked great? Is Frederik Andersen. Isn't it great? Do we not know how to handle having 2 good goalies? Did we forget? Like, is Curtis McElhinney a thing of the past? Like, we forgot all about that. Like, it was 2 seasons of Hutchinson being brutal and Garrett Sparks being also brutal. It was just before that, McElhinney gave the Leafs all the saves we wanted, or at very least, a chance to win every single night. Jack Campbell's doing that for the Leafs. Super worth it trade so far. And Freddie Andersen, in the games he's played, listen, rough first 2 games. Rough first 2 games. Outside of those first 2 games, the Leafs haven't had game 3, game 4, game 5, game 6, game 7. 5 straight games of good goaltending. Jack played 2, Fred played 3. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, guys. This is not a bad situation. Please stop making it into one. It's a goalie controversy if Freddie consistently plays like ass and Jack consistently plays good. If they're both bad, it's not a controversy, it's a problem. So,
and if they're both good, then it's just good.
It's not a controversy, it's just good. It's just good news.
Awesome.
Celebrate the good news.
Guys, what if it's too good? Why can't we just screw it up?
You know what? You're right.
What are we doing here enjoying this? Bullshit. 5-2 to start the season? What is this shit? Terrible. Anyway, that's what I have to say.
But
go Canadiens.
Wow.
So
it finally comes out. Hates hospitals, loves the Habs. Really? Wow. Well, okay.
There you go.
I see.
Wow. Anyway, hey, listen, we love you. We'll be back Thursday with our next show. Leafs next play Calgary tomorrow night in Calgary.
Goody.
Hopefully, Matthew Tkachuk. That's another Calgary.
Is there a Daniel?
There was a Daniel Tkachuk, not related to the other one, who was drafted by the Calgary Flames, I believe, like 5th overall in the late 90s, I want to say.
What?
Yeah.
Daniel?
Wow.
Look him up.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, look him up. Around
Gosh darn.
I have something to close the show
the
with.
Rico Fata era of the Calgary Flames. Yes, go ahead, Jesse.
With all this Winnipeg Jets talk, let's not forget that Ilya Kovalchuk is the all-time leader in goals for the Winnipeg Jets.
Let us not
forget that. Because the NHL is awesome.
What happened here? This guy had 11 points in 19 games and then never played in the NHL ever again.
Yeah, well, he probably wasn't tough enough. Didn't have enough McFist in him.
Wouldn't stab some guy with a knife.
2 knives.
2 knives attached
They
to
were
his feet.
inscribed with other knives. Wow. God, okay. Very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen,
Great
we're
way to
wrapping
end
it
the
up.
show. Strong end.
Guys, thank you so much for hanging in. We love you. We'll see you Thursday.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at AdamWYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Connection complete.